I'm doing. Feel like I am going crazy. Keep it down. You look good, you know it. I can tell you're soaking up all of it now. Hey, hey.
It's Britney, bitch.
Welcome to Social Heat, the place where headlines cool down and the real stories begin. Here, we go beyond the viral moments to understand the people, the systems, and the truth behind the spotlight. From global icons to cultural controversies, we break down the stories that shape public perception, without the noise and without the gossip. If you believe every headline has a deeper story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Today we're talking about Britney Spears and the legal arrangement that controlled her life for 13 years. How did one of the most successful pop stars in the world end up in a conservatorship usually meant for people who cannot manage their own affairs? Who was making decisions about her money, her career, and even her personal life? In this video, we're breaking down who controlled Britney Spears for 13 years and how she finally fought to take her life back. For years, the world thought it knew Britney Spears. We knew the hits, the tours, the glitter, and the tabloid chaos. But what most people did not know, at least not in Britney's own words, was what her life felt like behind closed doors after 2008. Then, on June 23rd, 2021, Britney did something she had not done in a very long time. She spoke directly to a judge, and she told her story without smiling for cameras, without choreography, and without a publicist shaping the message. It was a phone testimony in a Los Angeles courtroom, and it changed how many people understood her life. Today's story is not gossip. It is a biography of endurance. How a young woman became a global icon, how her adult life was placed under a rare legal arrangement, and how she fought, slowly, painfully, and very publicly to be heard. Britney grew up in Louisiana, performing from an early age and pushing toward a dream that did not allow much room for ordinary childhood. By the late 1990s, she was not just famous, she was a cultural event. Her early success came with intense scrutiny, and that scrutiny only grew as she became a young adult. Every relationship became a headline. Every mistake became a spectacle. And by the mid-2000s, the pressure around her was relentless. In 2007 and early 2008, Britney's personal struggles were documented like entertainment. Paparazzi followed her everywhere. Her parenting was debated by strangers. Her mental health became a public guessing game. In early 2008, after a series of crises, a court placed Britney under a conservatorship, an arrangement designed to give another person legal authority over someone who cannot manage their own affairs. Conservatorships are usually associated with older adults or people with severe impairments. Britney was 26. At first, many people assumed it was temporary. The public was told it would help her stabilize. But months became years, and the years became a decade. Under the conservatorship, Britney's finances and major life decisions were overseen by others. Her father, Jamie Spears, held a central role for much of the conservatorship's duration. There were also lawyers, business managers, and medical professionals involved. From the outside, Britney continued to work. She released music, performed on television, went on tours, and later held a long-running Las Vegas residency. To casual observers, that looked like a person functioning at a high level. But working and having freedom are not the same thing. A person can perform on stage and still lack control off stage. A person can smile for a photograph and still feel trapped. And as the years went on, fans and observers began to question how someone could be considered unable to make decisions while also being required to maintain one of the most demanding careers in entertainment. That question became the heartbeat of a movement. Hashtag Free Britney began as a fan-driven effort online, but it grew into something bigger. A public demand to understand what was happening and why it was happening for so long. When Britney testified on June 23, 2021, the tone was not vague. She was direct. She sounded exhausted, angry, and determined. She told the judge she wanted the conservatorship to end, and she wanted it to end without being forced through another evaluation first. She described the conservatorship as abusive. She said she felt bullied and controlled. She said she had been forced to work when she did not want to work. She described a period in 2018 when she was preparing a new residency but wanted to take a break. According to her testimony, when she resisted, she faced consequences. One of the moments that landed hardest with the public involved her reproductive autonomy. Britney told the court she wanted to get married and have another child, but she said she was not allowed to remove an IUD. That detail made many listeners stop and ask a simple question. How could an adult woman who could sign a performance contract and rehearse for hours be denied the right to make her own medical and family planning choices? Britney's testimony also described being monitored and restricted in ways that felt humiliating to her. She said she was not allowed to drive with her boyfriend in certain circumstances. She said she had to follow rules that made her feel like she was living under constant supervision. Britney also talked about medical treatment. She said she was required to attend therapy and that she felt the schedule was excessive and controlling. She spoke about being put on medication and described feeling unlike herself. She mentioned lithium specifically, describing side effects that made her feel disoriented. Now, it is important to be careful here. Medical details belong to Britney, and any outside person should avoid pretending to know more than what she shared. But what matters for her story is how she experienced the system. In her words, she felt forced. She felt unheard. She felt that refusing meant being punished. She said there was a time she was sent to a treatment facility against her will. The way she described it, it was not a gentle offer of help. It was a consequence for not complying. To many listeners, that sounded less like care and more like control. Britney's testimony raised financial questions too. She explained that she worked for years under an arrangement where she did not have full access to decisions about her own money. Meanwhile, the conservatorship itself generated expenses. Legal fees, management fees, and professional oversight paid from her estate. Even without claiming that every person involved acted with bad intent, it is reasonable to ask, what incentives existed to keep the system going? If Britney's career produced millions and the structure around her was funded by that income, then ending the conservatorship would also end many streams of payment. Britney told the judge she wanted an investigation into the people who managed her conservatorship. She spoke as someone who believed her silence had been misread as agreement. She said she did not know she could petition to end the conservatorship in the way she was now trying to do. And then she said something that cut through the legal language. She said she was not happy. She said she could not sleep. She said she was angry, furious even, and that she had carried that anger for a long time. Within hours, the testimony became international news. For many people, this was the first time they had heard Britney speak in such a raw and unfiltered way. Supporters gathered outside the courthouse. Online, the hashtag Free Britney movement surged. Celebrities and activists weighed in. Legal commentators explained how unusual it was for a conservatorship to last so long for someone who remained actively employed. Britney's case also sparked broader conversations about conservatorship laws. People looked at other high-profile conservatorships and asked whether safeguards were strong enough. If the system could be used for the vulnerable, could it also be misused for the convenient? And if so, how would anyone know? After Britney's testimony, the court process moved faster than it had in years. New filings appeared. Britney's attorney pushed for changes. Jamie Spears' role became a central issue. In September 2021, a judge suspended Jamie Spears as conservator of Britney's estate. For supporters, it felt like a turning point. It did not end the conservatorship immediately, but it signaled that the court was willing to restructure the arrangement in response to Britney's wishes and the changing facts on the ground. Then, in November 2021, the court terminated the conservatorship entirely. After 13 years, Britney Spears was legally free. The phrase "my life back," which she had used in her testimony, finally had legal meaning. Termination did not erase the past. It did not answer every question about decisions made in her name. It did not instantly heal the emotional impact of living under long-term control. But it did restore her autonomy, the ability to choose. In the months after the conservatorship ended, Britney began sharing more of her life on her own terms. She posted online, she thanked supporters, she expressed relief, joy, and sometimes confusion. That mix makes sense. When a person has lived under supervision for years, freedom is not something you simply turn on. It is something you relearn. Britney's story also became a cautionary tale, a reminder that fame does not protect a person from losing agency, and that public narratives can hide private realities. She was one of the most recognizable performers in the world, yet she claimed she could not make basic adult decisions. That contradiction is what drew so many older viewers in particular, because beyond pop music, this is a story about dignity. It is about the fear of being controlled. It is about what happens when family, money, and power collide. And it is about how hard it can be to speak up when the system around you insists you are not credible. Britney's testimony mattered because it recentered her as the main character of her own biography. For years, other people spoke about her. Lawyers, managers, reporters, relatives, commentators. In 2021, Britney spoke about herself. She did not sound like a perfectly polished celebrity. She sounded like a person trying to explain what it feels like to be trapped while the world assumes you are fine. Her words also pressured institutions to act. Courts are not supposed to respond to hashtags, but public attention can force clarity. It can encourage transparency. It can make it harder for slow-moving processes to remain comfortable. Britney's case helped many people understand conservatorships as more than paperwork. They are real power, power over money, medical decisions, movement, relationships, and the future. With that power, the need for oversight is enormous. Britney Spears is still a famous name. But the story that emerged from that 2021 courtroom is not really about fame. It is about autonomy. It is about the right to say no. It is about the right to choose your own medical care and build your own family. It is about being believed. For 13 years, Britney's life was managed by a system that said it was protecting her. In 2021, she told the judge that it was hurting her. And in 2021, the system finally listened. If there is one lesson from her testimony, it is this: when someone tells you they are not okay, the most human response is not to control them more. It is to hear them, to support them, and to help them regain the life that belongs to them. To understand why Britney's conservatorship became such a cultural shock, it helps to remember what her fame looked like at its peak. Britney was not only a singer on the radio, she was a brand, a symbol, and in many ways a mirror for an entire era. Teen magazines sold millions of copies with her face on the cover. Television hosts made jokes about her dating life as if it were a national hobby. She was expected to be both innocent and seductive, both relatable and perfect, all at the same time. That contradiction is exhausting for any young person, but Britney lived it at the loudest volume possible. Every performance was analyzed, every outfit debated, every expression frozen into a headline. When she became a mother, the scrutiny did not soften. If anything, it sharpened. A young woman under constant surveillance does not get to fail quietly, learn quietly, or heal quietly. By 2006 and 2007, her life was also marked by grief and instability. She experienced a highly public divorce, custody disputes, and the kind of relentless attention that turns normal stress into a pressure cooker. People sometimes talk about that period as if it were a reality show, but what it really was a human being unraveling in public. In early 2008, the conservatorship was presented as a solution. The narrative was simple. Britney had a breakdown, the court stepped in, and responsible adults would manage things until she recovered. Many people accepted that story because they wanted to believe it ended in safety. But the details that followed made the story more complicated. Britney did recover enough to work at a high level. Later in 2008, she released music, and in 2009, she toured internationally with the Circus Tour. Those were not small undertakings. Tours require rehearsals, travel, coordination, contracts, and disciplined execution night after night. And yet, the conservatorship stayed. For years, the public rarely heard Britney speak about it directly. What they heard were statements filtered through representatives. When people asked questions, the arrangement was described as necessary. Over time, necessary became normal, and normal became invisible. This is how long control can last, not through dramatic moments, but through routine, paperwork, court dates, approvals, a system that runs quietly in the background, while the person at the center of it learns to stop asking. Britney's working years under the conservatorship are one of the most confusing parts of her biography. She was busy, she was productive, she was performing, recording, and earning. Her Vegas residency became a headline success, and it brought in enormous revenue. But people who have worked in entertainment will tell you a performer can be physically present and emotionally absent. You can hit marks on stage while feeling numb inside. You can deliver lines while dissociating. You can smile because you learned that smiling keeps the machine moving. Britney's 2021 testimony suggested that this machine was bigger than any one person. It was a network of decision makers, contracts, and incentives. In that kind of structure, the person who says stop becomes a problem to be managed. And in Britney's telling, management did not mean rest. It meant consequences. The hashtag Free Britney movement is often described as a fan campaign, but it evolved into a form of public advocacy. At first, it was easy for outsiders to dismiss. People joked about conspiracy theorists. They assumed fans were overreacting. But over time, the questions became harder to laugh off. Fans noticed patterns, how Britney's captions seemed scripted, how her public voice felt absent, how court documents suggested ongoing legal control. They organized information, tracked hearings, and amplified concerns. And importantly, they kept the story alive during years when mainstream attention drifted elsewhere. By 2021, when Britney finally testified, millions of people were already listening. Not because they wanted drama, but because they wanted to know whether a woman's life could be legally controlled for that long without her true consent. One of the most heartbreaking aspects of Britney's testimony was not only what she said happened, but what she said she did not know. She implied that she did not fully understand her options. She described learning late that she could petition to end the conservatorship. Whether that was due to legal complexity, intimidation, poor communication, or something else, it points to a deeper truth. Systems can keep people compliant simply by making resistance feel impossible. When a person is told repeatedly that they are unstable, untrustworthy, or incapable, they can start to believe it. Over time, they may stop thinking of freedom as a realistic outcome. They may focus only on surviving the next day. Britney's 2021 testimony sounded like a person waking up from that long survival mode. She did not speak gently. She spoke urgently. And urgency is often what comes out when someone has been silent for too long. Britney's case also mattered because it pulled conservatorships into the mainstream. Many older viewers recognized something familiar in the fear of losing agency. They thought about elderly relatives, medical decisions, money management, and family conflict. They thought about how easily help can become control, especially when finances are involved. This is why Britney's story resonates across generations. You do not have to know her songs to understand the terror of being told you cannot decide for yourself. You do not have to be famous to understand what it feels like when your voice is treated as inconvenient. Britney's courtroom testimony was not a perfect speech. It was not meant to be. It was a human being trying to compress 13 years of frustration into a single moment where she finally had the microphone. And that is why it landed. Because for once, it was not about how Britney looked. It was about what Britney said. If you are watching this and you've ever cared for someone who needed help, Britney's story can feel complicated. Help is sometimes necessary. Protection can be real, but protection should never erase personhood. Britney's testimony reminded many people that dignity matters as much as safety. A court can manage money, but it cannot measure a soul. It can appoint guardians, but it should also demand accountability from them. In the end, Britney did not ask the world to save her. She asked to be allowed to participate in her own life. And that is a request most of us understand, no matter our age, our background, or our favorite songs. When you hear her words, try to listen like a spectator and more like a neighbor, because someday each family faces questions of control and trust. Thank you for watching Social Heat. If this story gave you a new perspective, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who should see it, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the stories behind the spotlight. Your support helps us keep these conversations going. Subscribe now and stay tuned for the next story on Social Heat.
I can't see the issue. Yeah, believe me, I need to keep myself in line, but I don't need to kiss you. Hey, we can make it tonight.
It's Britney, bitch.